Emptying out those closets? Donating old clothing? If you have gently used items that you're not using anymore, donate them to St. Vinny's thrift stores. Y'all, the money generated from your donated goods at St. Vinny's helps feed the hungry, clothe the vulnerable, and provide essential medicine to the uninsured. All your donations will stay right here in Dane County. Call St. Vinny's at 608-278-2920, extension 1 to schedule your free home pickup today. Hey, it's your host, Bianca, popping in to tell you about our new CityCast Madison Neighbors program. I know you've heard us talk about membership before, and many of you are already part of it. Well, it's got a new name. We're calling it CityCast Madison Neighbors because we've learned that people who support CityCast Madison are people who care deeply about the city and want to make it better. They're just the kind of neighbors this city needs. We're also adding benefits. CityCast Madison neighbors still have access to ad-free podcast listening and an exclusive weekly local events preview. But now you also get regular events like happy hours with other CityCast Madison neighbors, local volunteering meetups, and other members-only events where we explore and better our city together. And you get to shout out a local business or nonprofit you love on the show and in the Madison Minutes newsletter. For $10 a month, you can become a CityCast Madison neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. We couldn't make the show without people like you supporting it, and we're so excited for you to be a part of it. Thanks a million.
Today on CityCast Madison. Last week, FBI agents arrested Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan for allegedly obstructing justice when ICE came to the courthouse to arrest a man who was appearing before her in court. To get the scoop on what happened, I talked with Daniel Bice, watchdog columnist for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. It's Tuesday, April 29th. I'm executive producer Haley Sperling, and here's what Madison's talking about. This story is getting national media attention from across the country, and for good reason. It's pretty wild. And before we get into my conversation with Dan Bice, I want to pull back the curtain a little bit on how this conversation came to be, because it almost didn't happen. The news of Judge Hannah Dugan's arrest broke Friday morning and continued to unfold throughout the day. As soon as I read the story, I knew we needed to talk about it on the podcast. And immediately, producer Jade Isiri Ramos and I began sending emails to reporters who could come on the show to help explain the situation. But time kept ticking and no replies came through. By the end of Friday, Jade and I had decided to pivot from having this conversation with a reporter to dissecting it between the two of us. I put my best journalist hat on and did all of the digging that I could. I read every article, took notes on the criminal complaint, and dug into Judge Dugan's background in preparation for this conversation. But thankfully, later that evening, Daniel Bice confirmed, and now we have this great interview that you're about to hear. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you this because I want to let you know it takes a lot of effort and quick thinking to bring these shows together. And we do it all because we know how important it is, because we want to keep you informed. So if you value our work and want to ensure that we can keep bringing you the stories that matter, you can do that by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you believe in supporting local journalism, this is one of the best ways to do it. Not to mention, we've also got perks, ad-free listening, exclusive event invites, a limited edition coffee mug, and more. All you got to do is go to membership.citycast.fm. All right, let's get into the story. Dan Bice, thanks so much for joining us today. We're here today because there was some pretty big news that broke last week and has sort of continued to develop over the weekend. The long story short is that the FBI arrested a Milwaukee judge. And that's not a headline that you read every day. Can you tell us what happened here?
We have to go back a week to the Friday before. There was an undocumented immigrant who was making an appearance in Judge Dugan's courtroom. And the feds had made a determination that he was undocumented and that they were going to arrest him. It's a guy named Eduardo Flores Ruiz. Flores Ruiz had been deported back in 2012, and he quickly returned and has been here for 12 years. He was charged with misdemeanor battery. He had a roommate, got in a fight with a roommate. The charges say he punched the guy 30 times. And another, a woman who was there, he punched her as well. And so he had an appearance in the courtroom, and 6 agents show up at the courthouse to arrest him. And so there's a dispute about, can they make the arrest there? Can they be in the courtroom or whatever? And Judge Dugan was quite upset. Judge Dugan is maybe the most liberal judge we have in Milwaukee County. We have 46 judges. She's very far to the left. And she was, according to the criminal complaint against her, very agitated and upset. And she told them, first asked if they had a warrant, the 6 people, and there were 2 FBI agents, 2 DEA agents, and a couple of other agents. They were all working together on this. And they eventually go to the chief judge's office, and she, it appears, expedited Flores Ruiz's case while they were in there getting approval. She had about 25 cases that morning. So it was a stacked morning for her. And judges generally don't work very hard on Friday afternoon. So she was trying to get everything done. And so she moves it through. And then the question becomes, what did she do next? And she hasn't talked yet about what's going on. I've talked to her legal team and have heard generally her explanation about it. There's a side door that leads to a private hallway. And so instead of sending Flores Ruiz and his attorney back out through the main doorway where all the agents were sitting, she sent them through a side doorway. And they went through the side doorway out into the public hallway and hopped on an elevator. And actually, a DEA agent saw them, hopped on the elevator with them. It was sort of
I saw that.
A funny chase scene. But he speaks no Spanish. And the attorney and the defendant both do speak Spanish, and they speak together. And he then calls an FBI agent, a DEA agent. They come down, meet him, and he takes off running. It's not a very long chase, but they track him down outside the courthouse and arrest him there. And it's clear from the complaint that they were very irritated that they had to go these extra lengths. On Wednesday morning, we wrote that the investigation is going on because they started interviewing all of the attorneys who were in the room and other people. And they charged her with 2 criminal counts, one for obstruction and another one, which is called concealing someone so they can't be arrested. What they're probably going to be pushing for is for her to be removed from office. That's usually what occurs in these cases. So, what's not clear this morning is Flores Ruiz, he was charged in state court initially, and then on Thursday he was charged in federal court. And then this morning, he's not appearing in the ICE database at all. So it appears he might have been deported over the weekend.
Okay, wow. So there is a lot to unpack with this story, a lot of really interesting scenes and some kind of terrifying situations. But to be clear, I mean, ICE was not coming after, Mr. Flores Ruiz because of his crimes. They were coming after him because he was in our country allegedly illegally, right?
Right. They had used 2 databases in which they had fingerprints from him, and they matched the fingerprints. Yeah, I don't think they could care at all about the battery charges against him. But I've been told that ICE officials are using our online criminal database system, which is really good. You can look up anybody for any charges, civil, criminal, going back to the 80s. You can find where people have been convicted of things, and you can see where people have been charged. And so they could look up his name and see that he was, this person who had been deported back in 2012, compare the name and the date of birth on our database system, and then see that he had a court appearance on Friday, April 18th, and put all of those things together, which is what they did.
Interesting. So a lot of different agencies and information working here together.
It is, but it also raises the question about, this, because of the system is so easy to use, whether there'll be more arrests going on by ICE in courtrooms because they're able to use the system to match it with undocumented immigrants who are in in the United States. And as a result, there have been protests about, first there were protests about his arrest and then about Judge Dugan's arrest, which, also took place at the courthouse. There are a number of people who are upset with the fact that if they start making arrests routine at courthouses, what's that going to do for criminal cases and people who've been charged with stuff and have court appearances coming up?
Seduction, danger, and eternal consequences. Join Madison Opera for Mozart's Don Giovanni, a legendary classic that has thrilled and scandalized audiences from its first note to its last for centuries. According to his not-so-little black book, Don Giovanni has seduced thousands of women across Europe. Over the course of a dramatic few days, his misadventures come back to literally haunt him, as Mozart's brilliant score whirls people in and out of the Don's mist. This weekend only, take your seat in Overture Hall and experience captivating drama and sensational music in this enthralling masterpiece. You only have 2 chances to see Don Giovanni, so join in the excitement of opening night on Friday, May 2nd at 7:30 p.m. Or treat yourself to the Sunday matinee on May 4th at 2:30 p.m. What better way to liven up spring than with riveting scandal, opulent and deadly dinner parties, and supernatural revenge? Tickets start at just $20, so get yours today at madisonopera.org. Remember those fun nights back in the day at summer camp? Ready to make more memories? Camp Aldo is the adult summer camp event of the season, held on Saturday, July 12th from 2 to 7 p.m. at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center, located at 330 Femright Drive in Monona, Wisconsin. Camp Aldo is an incredibly fun day that supports kids' outdoor nature programs in Dane County. Expect rocket launches, tie-dye, friendship bracelet making, and other ridiculously fun competitions, like an additional ultimate relay that will have you reminiscing about your own camp days. And there are provisions. Tickets include unlimited locally brewed beverages and a reusable event cup. In other words, free beer. And food trucks will also be on site. There's a suggested donation of $60 that gets you into the event with the cup and the beer. So don't miss out. Sign up for Camp Aldo today. Reserve your tickets at aldoleopoldnaturecenter.org.
There are some huge implications here. And I'm curious, too, like I had read in the Journal Sentinel that immigration officers have been arresting several people in the halls of Milwaukee County Courthouse recently. Is this something that has always happened, or is this something that's more recent that you've just seen in this past year or so?
It's not even past year. The first arrest occurred in March, the second in early April, and then this one on April 18th. So there's been 3 arrests. The court is trying to figure out what to do. The chief judge has it's a little slow, but he's got a draft plan for dealing with this. And he was out of town on April 18th. So he wasn't even around to figure out what's going on. And so there's also this debate. They came with an administrative warrant, not a judicial warrant. And so
yeah, that was a big sticking point.
It is interesting that they did not come with a judicial warrant. And Judge Dugan, the judge who was arrested, had made a big point about this earlier on, that they needed to have judicial warrants, but they showed up with an administrative warrant. So the draft plan says that they're supposed to bring their warrant and give it to the chief judge, and that he wants the arrests to be made in the hallways, which are public areas, not in the courtrooms. But again, it seems like they need to move pretty quickly on this to figure out, what they're doing. But I think some of the judges are concerned about this, and not just the judges in Milwaukee, but judges elsewhere are concerned about this because they don't want this happening. They're having their court hearings for a reason, and they want to give due process to people. I don't think they think of their courtrooms as a target for the feds to come and arrest people.
Yeah. I mean, like, what kind of precedent does this set in terms of people going to the courthouse, getting arrested by ICE agents, but then also Judge Hannah Dugan's arrest? Like, I know we don't know what comes next, but like, what are the feelings here?
It's clear that Judge Dugan didn't want to cooperate with the agents. And I think it's pretty clear she didn't want them to be in her courtroom. And The question is, did she think she was facilitating the two in escaping from an arrest or not? It's clear she had them, directed them to a separate door than what everybody else was doing. And so, it's possible she thought she was carrying out justice because of what they were doing was wrong. But that's a really tough thing to do, to think that you're doing the right thing by avoiding FBI, DEA agents and ICE agents. But that's what she did. And the criminal complaint, I've read a lot of criminal complaints before, but this one seems like it was written by someone who was very agitated with the fact that she did this. It also wants to point out that she was angry, that she was grumbling about stuff, that she went out in the hallway and directed them to go to the chief judge's office, which is just in the hallway from her. So I think they want to send a message that if judges want to do this, that they'll get in trouble too. And I think that's the message is clearly that they intend to continue to make arrests at courthouses, and the judges better not obstruct them in doing this.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty strong statement. And yeah, I was reading that criminal complaint as well. And I think you hit it really hard. There just really did seem to be a tinge of annoyance there.
Well, I do think they think that what they're doing is right, and that...
And so did the judge.
Which is the difficult thing, because they both thought that they were doing the right thing. And so as a result, there were 700 and some people who were protesting on Saturday here about this, and several other judges have spoken up. The county executive has spoken up because, there is some concern. The response is broken down, as you might expect, along political lines. Republicans want to start taking steps immediately to remove Judge Dugan, which, it's not a surprise. She's a Democrat. She's been active as a Democrat. She was elected by defeating an appointee of a Republican governor. So to remove her is no big deal for them. And so they want to make a point that they support deportation of undocumented immigrants. And so that's the one side. And then the other side is saying, we shouldn't be using the courthouse as a place to entrap people and to arrest them. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and if they continue to do this, and how other courtrooms will react. Milwaukee's a very heavily Democratic area. If they would try this in, say, Waukesha County, which is directly west of us, it's a very conservative county, and they would have fewer problems. But Milwaukee's a much bigger place and would have more undocumented immigrants. So it'll be interesting to see if they continue to try to do this in response to what Judge Dugan did.
Yes, your mom wants you to call her. This Mother's Day, give her a call and give her an Aura digital picture frame. My sister lives 2,000 miles away, and I often miss her when I'm out doing something fun that she'd love. I have this photo of us roller skating on the boardwalk by Santa Monica Pier, and every time I see it, I feel the joy of that moment trying to skate and look cool. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter and featured in 495 gift guides last year. So the next time you need to call your mom, you can also send her a new pic of you from that trip you're telling her about right from your phone. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver matte frame. That's auraframes.com, promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, it's your host, Bianca, popping in to tell you about our new CityCast Madison Neighbors program. I know you've heard us talk about membership before, and many of you are already part of it. Well, it's got a new name. We're calling it CityCast Madison Neighbors because we've learned that people who support CityCast Madison are people who care deeply about the city and want to make it better. They're just the kind of neighbors this city needs. We're also adding benefits. CityCast Madison neighbors still have access to ad-free podcast listening and an exclusive weekly local events preview. But now you also get regular events like happy hours with other CityCast Madison neighbors, local volunteering meetups, and other members-only events where we explore and better our city together. And you get to shout out a local business or nonprofit you love on the show and in the Madison Minutes newsletter. For $10 a month, you can become a CityCast Madison neighbor today by going to membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. We couldn't make the show without people like you supporting it, and we're so excited for you to be a part of it. Thanks a million.
We're a little bit more than halfway through this show, and we're about halfway through our spring membership campaign. But we are just short of halfway to our goal. To keep us on track, I'm looking for 10 people to become members. That's 10 people who are willing to support us for $10 a month or $100 a year. If that's you, head to membership.citycast.fm now to join us. Before we get back into the show, I need to give a shout out to all of the people who we recently welcomed to the CityCast Madison neighborhood. A big thank you to Lauren B., Megan L., Katrina P., Carolyn W., Shanae D., Rue O., Stacy R., Maxwell L., Mary S., Nicole S., Kevin S., Allison M., Jenna C., and Kent M. Oh my, that's a whole lot of new neighbors. Welcome to the squad, y'all. We are so happy to have you here. And beyond that, we are grateful for your support. We see you and we appreciate you. Alrighty, now back to the show. I want to talk a little bit more about these protests and the reactions. So what did the scene look like on Friday in Milwaukee and over the weekend?
I was trying to pull everything together. So I was not at the courthouse. I can tell you what our reporters said. Things moved very, very quickly. The arrest occurred shortly after 8. We posted a story a little before 9. Other media then started posting, and then they had her court hearing scheduled at 10 o'clock. Usually you have a day or something or later in the day, and they ended up switching it to 10:30. The courtroom, which is small, the courtrooms at the federal courthouse are not very large. It was packed, mostly with media, but about 25, 30 people. She was there. I was wondering if she was going to come in some sort of jumpsuit or whatever, but they released her. She was just, dressed normally or whatever. And she came in with her attorney. She's since switched attorneys. She had someone who was a personal friend who's a defense attorney to someone who has handled federal charges, former U.S. attorney, a Republican appointee of the Bush administration. And he's the one representing her now. But she didn't talk. Her attorney did say basically that he didn't appreciate how she was arrested in her courtroom that morning. That's the first part of the scene is she, again, on Friday, she has a busy Friday calendar. I think she had 18 cases on Friday. She came in a little bit early because she would have to prepare, and they arrest her in her courtroom. So they didn't go to her house. They didn't go someplace else. So again, a statement that they're making that if you do this, we're going to make these arrests. And so I got a call from a judge saying, you won't believe this, but Hannah Dugan was just arrested here.
Wow.
And that's how we started onto the story, because it was a message that went to the judges and they got the message. And so people were a little surprised, and the story was coming out slowly on Friday, but by Saturday, the opposition had organized, and that's why I told you about 700 people showed up down by the lakeside to protest what had gone on. And a number of Democrats put out statements saying that this is inappropriate, that they should not be. There are two things that they're attacking. One, the initial arrest, to be looking up people who are making appearances in court, because there's concern that someone who has a serious offense against them might not show up if they feel like they might be arrested, or, someone caught in a domestic violence dispute as a witness or something like that. Could they be arrested if they come to appear or be a witness at the court? There's that. And then two, people thought that what Judge Dugan, that she was acting within her rights and that she shouldn't have been arrested. So there are more protests today, and I think there probably will be for some days. But I don't expect the Trump people to back down at all. Trump has not responded, but the FBI director has responded. The attorney general has responded, both praising the Milwaukee FBI and ICE agents for what they had done. So I would not be surprised if we have more arrests like this coming up sometime soon. The question is, what are judges going to do? What is the chief judge going to do the next time?
Yeah. And I know we got to let you go because you have an interview with CNN. I know that I first heard about this story via a push notification from the New York Times. So clearly this is striking a nerve with people. Clearly this is a story that folks across the nation are watching.
It's such a highly unusual thing. Plus the Trump administration, they've been frustrated in some ways because of what's happened in other cases that didn't go so well. But they thought this was, for them, a clean arrest and something that sent a big message. I think they want to put this up and contrast this with what happened with, the earlier El Salvador arrests. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Flores Ruiz has already been deported.
Well, Dan Bice of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot.
Daniel Bice is a watchdog columnist at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm executive producer Haley Sperling. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with someone who fights for justice? And as a reminder, we're looking for 10 of you to become CityCast Madison neighbors today. We depend on listener support. We depend on you, like we know you depend on us. New member Ru O left this note on why she became a CityCast Madison neighbor. She said, quote, "When I first moved to Madison, CityCast was a big part of how I got to know my community and get involved. Listening to the podcast has helped me find my home here." If we've helped you feel at home in Madison, please consider becoming a member today. You can sign up at membership.citycast.fm. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, y'all. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take care.